Hi, this is Shaun. In this video I'm going to go over how to use a particle system as a mask for a refractive heat plume coming out of the engines of a jet. So let's just show what we've got, and this is going to be the finished product that I'm going to explain in the next 5 or 6 minutes. So you can see the heat trail of this spaceship is creating this warping effect as the spaceship passes by. That's pretty common. It's a refractive property of heat in the air, but you can also do this in water as well. Alright, so let's go over how we created this effect. So we start off in Maya, and here's the scene in Maya. We've got the ship, and I've attached a particle emitter, just hardware-based particles, to the back of that ship. And so pretty much I did this in 2 passes. The first pass was I created the spaceship on a spline, I animated it flying across the scene, and I've got the particles. But these are hardware particles, so they don't render out. So I did just a super fast, playblast, low quality render for this example. But if you're going to do this for real, you'd probably want reflections in the windows, and you'd want some depth of field and all sorts of other qualities. But for this example, I'm just going to go over how to make this heat plume. I made all these buildings really quick with the ICQ Town plugin, and then slapped some really crazy basic bad textures on here for the example. For the second pass, I created a scene with the same scene all over again. So the particles are shaded white with the surface shader. And then I have the particles, it's just like a volumetric emitter with a turbulence field assigned to it. And so, and then I just colored everything else in the scene black. Then I rendered out the scene using the hardware render buffer, so under rendering editors, hardware render buffer. And then in the attributes, I rendered out, I gave it a file name, I rendered out 1 to 150, and 640 by 480. I told it to generate an alpha channel with hardware alpha, and then I went under render, and I'd rendered out the sequence. So then I got 150 frames with the alpha channel. So the alpha channel, and so let's just go into After Effects. So here I am in After Effects. I have 2 passes and 1 duplicated pass. So here's the pass that I've got. I've turned off the other 3 channels right now. So here's the beauty pass. I've got just the spaceship flying through the scene, and no particles are showing up. Then I've got the particles, and on the particles channel you can see the white particles that were rendered out. And if we take a quick look at the alpha channel, you can see that we've got the particles, but all the other objects are still are opaque. And so I made it easy for myself in that I colored everything in the scene black except for the particles. So I could use an old school Luma key. And that's an effect under keying, or it used to be. I think it's a sort of legacy now, but it's still in there. If you go under the effects and presets and you type Luma, you drag a Luma key onto your scene, and then I just keyed out darker. So when I turn that on, now it's masking everything but the illuminated white particles. And I could even feather those edges a little bit if I wanted to make it a smoother transition. Okay, so I've got that particle system set up. Then, and I put the particles at the top, and then I've got my beauty pass, and I use these particles as a mask. So if this isn't showing up, you need to use this toggle switch and go to alpha mask inverted. And so now I've got the ability to, well, I'm still looking at my alpha channel. There we are. And you don't even need to leave this channel on. So I've got this mask working, and I've got the alpha mask inverted. The third channel is a duplicate of the beauty pass, but then I've put a turbulent displace effect in After Effects on the channel. So you can see it sort of warping the whole scene. And I played with the turbulence displace size quite a bit and complexity. You could make this more fine or more complex. I've seen this turbulence displace effect used for like repulsor lifts as well as like these heat distortion fields. So I animated the evolution, but you can also create some of the this effect if the wind were blowing. You could sort of animate the turbulence offset. So you could sort of drag this across the scene, the turbulence offset if you wanted to. And this turbulence displace effect, select that, and it's under distort. It's turbulent displace. So I've got that on this scene. And then by virtue of this mask, basically, I turn this on, and we're left with the particles only revealing just where the particles are. It's revealing the distorted part of the scene. And that's how you create that heat plume effect, or one of the ways. If I were to do this again, I would probably put a gradient fall off on the particles so that as they aged, they would get darker. And that way, it would create a feeling of dissipation. So like as if the air got cooler and the refractive property of the particles dissipated. All right, well, that's it. Thanks so much for watching.